swore an oath as a child to destroy Rome. He led an army, including war elephants, crossed the Alps in the heart of winter, and inflicted the greatest military defeat in history on the Roman Republic. Hannibal Barca was not just a military leader, but the most dangerous enemy Rome ever produced. We will explore his entire life, from his oath in Carthage to the bloody Battle of Cannae and his final tragic death. The story of Hannibal Barca is not just a tale of military genius. It is the ultimate narrative of lifelong sacred vengeance. Born in 247 BC into the Carthaginian military aristocracy, he was the son of Hannibal Barca, the leading general of the First Punic War. That war, which concluded in 241 BC, was a national humiliation for Carthage. The terms of surrender were brutal. Carthage was forced to abandon Sicily, relinquish significant naval power, and pay crushing war indemnities to the burgeoning Roman Republic. This defeat established an existential trauma that defined Hannibal's upbringing. The pivotal moment of his life, the foundation of his legend, occurred when he was just 9 years old. Hamilcar, preparing to depart for Spain to rebuild Carthaginian strength, took young Hannibal to the temple of Baal or Melkart. There, he made his son swear a solemn eternal oath that he would never be a friend of Rome and would dedicate his life to Rome's destruction. This was not a childhood game. It was a sacred covenant, a mandate for war that Hannibal would adhere to until his final breath. Hamilcar dedicated the remainder of his life to forging a new Carthaginian empire in Spain, rich in silver mines and manpower, entirely independent of the corrupt Carthaginian Senate. Hannibal grew up in this harsh military environment, learning strategy, leadership, and endurance firsthand. He was renowned among the troops for his physical hardiness. He shared their meager rations, slept on the ground with them, and never asked a man to endure a hardship he had not already faced himself. He was fluent in several local dialects and had a comprehensive grasp of military and political history. Upon his brother-in-law Hasdrubal's assassination in 221 BC, the Carthaginian army in Spain unanimously elected the 26-year-old Hannibal as their commander-in-chief, a testament to his already immense authority. Hannibal spent 2 years consolidating Carthaginian control in Spain, knowing that Rome would eventually intervene. The point of no return came in 218 BC when Hannibal besieged the city of Saguntum, a Roman protectorate deep within Carthaginian designated territory. This was a deliberate provocation, a direct challenge to Roman authority. After a brutal 8-month siege, Saguntum fell. Rome, citing the violation of treaties, demanded that Hannibal be surrendered. The Carthaginian Senate, trapped by Hannibal's actions, refused. The Second Punic War had begun. Hannibal understood that a defensive war would ultimately lead to Carthage's slow suffocation. The only chance for victory was to carry the war directly into Italy, attacking the Roman home territory where they were strongest, and more importantly, separating Rome from its powerful network of Italian allies. The audacity of his plan was breathtaking. He would march his army, around 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and his 37 war elephants, over the massive natural fortress of the Alps. The march began in the spring of 218 BC. They navigated the Pyrenees and the treacherous rivers of Gaul, facing hostile tribes throughout the summer. But the true legendary ordeal began in the late autumn as they faced the high passes of the Alps. The army confronted freezing temperatures, treacherous snowdrifts, and constant guerrilla attacks from mountain tribes who saw the Carthaginian baggage train as rich plunder. The narrow, icy paths were catastrophic. Men and animals slipped to their deaths down sheer precipices. Hannibal was often forced to use vinegar and fire to crack open rock faces and clear paths. The casualties were staggering. By the time Hannibal finally descended into the Po Valley of Italy after 15 grueling days, his army was a shadow of its former self. He had lost nearly half of his infantry and almost all of his war elephants and cavalry horses, which succumbed to the extreme cold, disease, and accidents. Yet the psychological victory was immediate. Rome had prepared for a naval confrontation or a defense in Spain. The sight of a Carthaginian army, a ghost army yet still formidable, appearing from the northern passes, a direction deemed impossible, threw the Republic into immediate panic. Hannibal's immediate campaign on Italian soil showcased his unparalleled tactical brilliance. At the Battle of the Trebia, 218 BC, He used the icy river and concealed a small but highly disciplined detachment of cavalry under his brother Mago in the tall riverbanks. When the Romans, exhausted and hungry, crossed the freezing river, Mago launched his ambush, turning the Roman retreat into a rout. The next year brought even greater humiliation. At the Battle of Lake Trasimene, 217 BC, Hannibal perfectly exploited the natural landscape. Knowing the Roman consular army would follow him along the narrow shoreline, he positioned his entire army hidden in the hills, shrouded by the heavy morning mist rising from the lake. When the unsuspecting Romans marched through the narrow defile, Hannibal ordered the attack. The Roman army was trapped between the Carthaginian forces and the lake. Approximately 15,000 Roman soldiers were killed in hours, and another 10,000 captured. The Roman Senate was plunged into despair. In response to these crushing defeats, the Roman Republic adopted the revolutionary strategy of Quintus Fabius Maximus Verrucosus, nicknamed Cunctator, the Delayer. Fabius advocated for avoiding any pitched battle with Hannibal, instead employing a strategy of slow attrition, constant skirmishing, and scorched earth tactics. This strategy was deeply unpopular with the Roman masses, who wanted a decisive victory, but it proved to be the only way to save the Republic by denying Hannibal the opportunity for another Cannae. However, the Roman Senate, desperate for a decisive victory to regain face and territory, replaced Fabius's cautious command with 2 new consuls and amassed the largest single army in Roman history. The ultimate confrontation occurred at the Battle of Cannae in the summer of 216 BC. Rome brought perhaps 86,000 men, a force that outnumbered Hannibal's army by 2 to 1. The Battle of Cannae remains Hannibal's immortal masterpiece. Facing overwhelming numbers on an open plain, Hannibal deployed his Spanish and Gallic infantry in a weakened crescent shape, convex towards the center. He placed his finest troops, the veteran Libyan infantry, on the flanks, concealed in a straight line. The plan was audacious. He commanded the weak center to retreat slowly under the pressure of the Roman charge. The Romans, seeing their enemy's center crumbling, pushed forward with their entire force, creating a massive, dense column, desperate to finish the Carthaginian army. This rush into the center was the trap. As the Roman mass surged forward, the crescent formation inverted, drawing the Romans deep into a terrifying vacuum. Hannibal's elite forces on the flanks then pivoted inwards, and his superior Numidian cavalry, having routed the Roman horsemen, closed the gap behind them. The result was the perfect double envelopment, a maneuver military students study to this day. The entire Roman army was completely surrounded, packed tightly with no room to fight or retreat. The ensuing slaughter was horrific. Estimates suggest up to 70,000 Roman soldiers were killed in a single day, a casualty rate unprecedented in ancient warfare. Roman casualties included 1 consul, 80 senators, and dozens of high-ranking officials. The defeat was an existential crisis. The phrase "Hannibal ad portas," "Hannibal is at the gates," became the scream of sheer panic throughout Rome. Despite holding the strategic advantage, Hannibal lacked the critical element for total victory: siege equipment and the fresh manpower needed to breach the massive walls of Rome itself. He refused to march on the city immediately, instead choosing to solidify his control in southern Italy, aiming to break Rome's alliances with the Greek city-states and Samnites. For the next 13 years, Hannibal remained entrenched in Italy, a constant debilitating poison in the Roman homeland. While he never captured Rome, his presence turned a generation of Roman life into a prolonged crisis. Rome, however, refused to surrender, maintaining a relentless, grinding war of attrition while avoiding any major battle. The turning point was the emergence of the young, brilliant Roman general, Publius Cornelius Scipio. Scipio realized the only way to dislodge Hannibal from Italy was to ignore him and attack the source of his power, Carthage itself. After successfully defeating the Carthaginians in Spain, Scipio convinced the Senate to allow him to invade North Africa. The invasion was successful, and Carthage, fearing for its capital, desperately recalled Hannibal from Italy. The great general's 15-year campaign on Roman soil was over. The final legendary clash came at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. Hannibal, commanding an army composed largely of conscripts, faced Scipio, now Scipio Africanus, who had meticulously studied Hannibal's own tactics. Scipio deployed his forces in an ingenious way to neutralize Hannibal's war elephants. opening lanes in his formation to allow the beasts to pass through harmlessly. Crucially, Scipio's cavalry, trained by the Numidian Massinissa, was superior and executed a flawless flanking maneuver, surrounding Hannibal's army in a reverse of Cannae. Hannibal was defeated, his only major loss in open battle. The defeat was catastrophic for Carthage, which was forced to agree to a humiliating peace treaty, giving up all foreign territories and paying massive reparations. Hannibal's life after Zama became a relentless fight for survival. He briefly served Carthage as a chief magistrate, enacting democratic and economic reforms that angered the powerful Carthaginian oligarchy and further provoked Rome. Facing certain extradition to Rome, Hannibal fled to the Hellenistic East, serving as a military advisor to various kings, always attempting to rally a coalition against Rome. Rome, obsessed with revenge, hunted him relentlessly across the Mediterranean for the next 2 decades. Eventually, cornered by Roman agents in Bithynia, Hannibal chose his own final moment. To deny his ultimate enemy the satisfaction of his capture and execution, he took the poison he had carried with him for years, dying around 183 BC. His final words, according to Livy, expressed his contempt for Rome's endless thirst for vengeance. Hannibal's legacy is not just the memory of his victories, but the indelible impact he had on the very formation of the Roman Empire. His tactical genius is enshrined in military history, and his 15-year presence in Italy tested the resilience of the Roman Republic to its absolute limit, confirming its unparalleled, iron will to survive. What if Hannibal had possessed the resources to besiege Rome after Cannae? Was his initial oath a source of strength or a destructive burden? Is he history's greatest general or simply Rome's greatest nightmare? We await your detailed analysis in the comments below on Bamboo Story.